Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another edition of the Pick Six. I'm your host, Mike Wobschall, inside the TCO studios. Thank you for submitting your questions and giving us something to do. Let's get to work. Question number one comes from Brent. What is your way too early starting offensive line for the squad this year? It is way too early to predict the starting offensive line, Brent, but I think it all starts with Pat Elflein and Garrett Bradbury in the center. One of those two guys is going to be the starting center. The other is going to play guard. Once we figure that out, then we can figure out if it's going to be Josh Klein at the other guard position, or maybe Drew Samia, or Danny Isadora, or Avion Collins. Lots of options, lots of combinations for this coaching staff to experiment with. On the outside at tackle, though, we're pretty solid with Reif and O'Neal. Question number two comes from Cassidy. I am watching through the recent press conferences, and I noticed that Kirk Cousins mentions explosive plays a lot. What does he mean exactly? Well, you can measure explosive plays a couple of different ways, but the standard and easy way to do it is a 10-yard rush, which you're seeing right here from Dalvin Cook, or a 20-yard reception, which we saw a lot of last season from Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs and Kyle Rudolph. So you want to see lots of those plays on a drive because defenses are good these days and penalties and turnovers can happen. The fewer plays it takes you to get down the field, the better. Question number three comes from JL. Do you think Dillon Mitchell has a legitimate shot to make the team and be a contributor? Absolutely I do. I like both drafted wide receivers for the Vikings this year, Dillon Mitchell and BC Johnson. They both look good at rookie camp. After Thielen and Diggs, this wide receiver group is wide open. Teams usually keep 5 or 6, so there could be 4 or 5 spots wide open for the Vikings this year at wide receiver, and I think Mitchell's got a good shot to earn one of them. Next question comes from Nate in Minneapolis. We know how the defensive coaching staff can develop later round draft picks, but how do you think Rick Dennison and company will be able to develop Oli Udoh into a mauler on the offensive line? Yeah, Udoh is a project for the Minnesota Vikings, but I saw him at rookie minicamp. He definitely looks the part. This guy is big and physical. I don't know what position he's going to play exactly, but I do know new Vikings offensive line coach Rick Dennison is excited to get his hands on this kid. Rick Dennison's been coaching offensive lines in the NFL for like 2 decades. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to do some good work with Oli Udoh and the rest of this young Vikings offensive line. Next question comes from Gary in Spring Grove, Minnesota. Wondering why there always seems to be a position for a long snapper. Can't Elflein, Bradbury, or a backup do that? Would free up a valuable spot on the roster. Don't shortchange how difficult it is to be a long snapper in the NFL. This is a specialty position that requires practice every single day of the week. So yeah, you could ask a position player on offense or defense to do this, but those guys have to practice with the offense or the defense. Plus they can get hurt, and you'd be dealing with the backup long snapper way more often than you'd like to do it. So the Vikings are lucky to have Kevin McDermott, and now you can see why they spent a draft pick on the position. It's an important one in the NFL. Final question comes from my friend Tim in Ohio. What areas do you feel we must improve on to make a legitimate run in 2019? Well, there are a few to pick and choose from here. The Vikings have a good roster with lots of talent, and a lot of those areas looked really good last season, including the Vikings defense, but I'm going to start with them. Here's Mike Hughes returning a fumble for an interception for a touchdown. Danielle Hunter trying to get to the end zone. How about more turnovers created by the Vikings defense? I think that's an area that could really spur this team to some more wins. The Vikings defense is good in like every area that you can measure, including third downs where they are historically good, but creating turnovers would help this team a lot. How about on special teams, some more explosive returns, a blocked kick or two, maybe a fake here and there. I'd like to see the special teams make a game-changing play or two and help the Vikings pick up an extra win. And then on offense, a more consistent and physical running game. I think that will help the offense score more points, and it will help the pass protection as well. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the Pick Six. Thank you for submitting your questions. We're going to be back next week with another edition of the Pick Six, so make sure you submit your questions to the email address at the bottom of the screen, and we'll see you next week.